She was only 11, small, gentle, and excited, stepping onto her father's private jet for the first time without him. She held a handmade birthday card tightly in her hands, covered in glitter and crooked hearts. This was supposed to be a safe place, a happy moment, a simple surprise for her dad. But the moment the pilot laid eyes on her, everything shifted. His brows pulled together, his jaw tightened, his eyes scanned her from head to toe, not with concern but with suspicion. He didn't ask her name, he didn't check her documents, he didn't confirm anything with the crew. In a single, chilling decision, he reached for the radio. He said the words no child should ever hear associated with them. Possible security threat on board. The luxury cabin suddenly felt like a cage. The little girl froze, clutching her card closer, confused and scared. She had flown on this jet dozens of times, always greeted with warmth. But today, her brown skin changed everything. The pilot approached her, demanding she step off the aircraft. When she held out her pass with trembling hands, he barely glanced at it. As if it were fabricated, as if she didn't belong. And then, without warning, he reached for metal restraints. For an 11-year-old girl. Alone. Afraid. Crying. What he didn't know, what he never bothered to ask, was that the child he was treating like a criminal was the daughter of the man who owned the jet, the hangar, and the company he worked for. What happens when innocent childhood meets blind prejudice? Watch. Until the end. Wait a second. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more powerful and inspiring stories just like this one. Her name was Layla Kingston, 11 years old, full of curiosity, and carrying the kind of innocence that made the world look softer than it was. She grew up in a life of comfort, but she never acted like a child born into wealth. Her father raised her with kindness, humility, and compassion. She spent her time drawing, making crafts, reading comics, and baking cookies with her nanny. Her father, Jordan Kingston, was a global tycoon, the owner of Kingston Aero Group. This company built private jets for leaders and celebrities worldwide. But to Layla, he wasn't a billionaire. He was Daddy, the man who kissed her forehead every night and saved her drawings on his office wall. Today, she wanted to surprise him. After weeks away on business, he was returning home, and Layla decided to meet him mid-flight. She made a card, packed a small gift, and boarded his jet early with the assistance of a kind crew member who recognized her immediately. But the primary pilot for this flight was new. He didn't know Layla. He didn't care to ask. When she stepped inside the cabin, she smiled shyly at him, but instead of returning that smile, he stared at her with a cold, puzzled expression, as if her presence disrupted the order of his world. Layla sat quietly in her seat, legs dangling above the floor, completely unaware that the man now watching her believed she didn't belong there. She had no idea that the next few minutes would turn into the most frightening moment of her young life, one that would challenge her trust, her innocence, and her sense of safety. Captain Ross approached, Layla with a rigid posture, eyeing her with disbelief. He grabbed her boarding documents, but instead of checking them carefully, he scanned them with the assumption they were forged. His face twisted with irritation, not concern. "We don't allow unauthorized individuals here," he said flatly, ignoring the fact that she was clearly a child. Layla blinked in confusion. Unauthorized? She had clearance. She had flown on this plane so many times before, she tried to explain in her small, trembling voice, "I'm waiting for my daddy. He's—" But Ross cut her off sharply. "Don't make things up." He stepped to the cockpit, grabbed his radio and reported, "Suspicious minor on board, doesn't match passenger list." The crew froze. They knew her. They tried to intervene, but the captain's authority overshadowed their concerns. Layla held her gift tighter, her throat tightened. She wasn't sure what she had done wrong. When she reached for her small backpack to get her phone, hoping to call, her father, the pilot, lunged forward and snatched it from her, as if she were reaching for something dangerous. "Don't move," he snapped. Her heart pounded, tears filled her eyes. Captain Ross locked the cabin door, trapping her inside with him. He paced in front of her as if she were a threat rather than a scared child. Layla whispered, "Please, I'm not bad." But he didn't hear her fear. He only listened to the story in his own head. And then it happened. He opened the emergency kit and took out metal restraints, meant for violent passengers. Layla's breath caught in her throat. She backed into the seat, shaking her head. But he grabbed her wrists and forced the cold metal around her tiny hands. Tears streamed down her face. Her hands burned. Her trust was shattered. The pilot radioed again. Threat contained. Preparing to remove the individual. But outside, just moments away, a black SUV was approaching the hangar. Inside, it was the man whose daughter was being handcuffed at that very moment. Jordan Kingston stepped out of the SUV with casual excitement, holding a small bag of gifts for Layla. But before he took more than 5 steps, the co-pilot came running toward him, breathless and panicked. "Sir, there's an issue with your daughter." Jordan felt the ground slip beneath him. "What issue?" But the co-pilot didn't have to answer. Jordan heard Layla's cry from inside the jet, a sound no father ever forgets. He sprinted up the aircraft stairs and burst through the cabin door, only to find a nightmare. Layla was sitting on the seat, wrists cuffed, face red from crying, chest heaving as she struggled to breathe. Her small feet dangled helplessly off the edge of the seat. Captain Ross hovered over her, about to drag her out. Jordan's voice thundered through the cabin. "Take your hands off my daughter." Everyone froze, even Layla. The pilot slowly turned, and horror washed over his face as he realized who she was, who he was. Jordan rushed to Layla, unfastening the cuffs with shaking hands. She collapsed into his arms, sobbing. Ross stuttered. "Sir." "She didn't look. She didn't seem. I followed protocol." Jordan looked at him with the cold fury of a father whose child had been hurt. "You didn't follow protocol. You followed prejudice. Security arrived expecting a criminal. Instead, they found a powerful man holding his terrified daughter, while the pilot who had accused her shrank back in shame." Captain Ross was immediately removed from the aircraft. An internal investigation began within the hour. Public statements followed. Kingston Aero Group would not tolerate racial profiling in any form. But none of that changed how Layla felt. Her wrists were bruised, her voice was shaky. Her innocence, once pure, had been fractured by fear. In the days that followed, Jordan held press conferences not as a billionaire CEO, but as a father. He spoke about systemic bias, not just for adults, but for children who face suspicion simply because they look out of place to someone with power. Layla's story spread across the world. Parents cried, children asked questions, people demanded change. But the heaviest impact lay in Layla's quiet question to her father a few days later. "Daddy, did I look dangerous?" Jordan held her tightly. "No, baby, you looked like a child. They didn't see you." Her story became more than a family tragedy. It became a symbol, a reminder that racial injustice doesn't spare innocence. It doesn't pause for youth. It doesn't care about titles or wealth. It strikes wherever ignorance has room to grow. So now, after hearing Layla's story, ask yourself, which country and city are you watching from? Take care.